Hey guys, welcome to the AFL Round 8 betting trend report and overall round preview. In this video, I'm going to go through all 9 games coming up this weekend, the betting history between those two sides, who I think is going to win each game, and any potential bets that I'm looking at having on those matchups. We have a really awesome round coming up this weekend. There's 5 to 6 really good games, and then the other games on the round are still fairly good games. So we've got some great contents. Adelaide versus Port, Carlton versus Collingwood, Sydney versus GWS, St Kilda versus North Melbourne, a little bit of a low game there. Melbourne versus Geelong, West Coast versus Essendon, Richmond versus Fremantle, Western Bulldogs versus Hawthorn, and then the Brisbane Lions against Gold Coast, who got the win over them last time they met late last season. Before we get into the games coming up this weekend, though, I just want to quickly look back on last round, where it was a pretty good round of footy. We hit some good bets. Richmond, team total under. We won a small amount with our multi on the Essendon and Collingwood game that ended in a draw. The over in the Giants-Lions game, which hit with a goal right on the siren. Port got the win against St Kilda. Adelaide went well and truly over their team total against North Melbourne. Geelong managed to beat Carlton in a high-scoring game. We got the Fremantle Western Bulldogs game wrong, with the Bulldogs not putting it together for the full 4 quarters. Gold Coast versus Eagles. I didn't get a chance to post the preview for this game, but spoke about how I loved the over in that matchup. And then the Swans made a mess of Hawthorn to close out the round. From betting trends, 6 of these 9 games went over the total. 5 of them, though, finished within 10 points of the total for that game. So the final score was within 10. Looking at the betting totals so far this season, slight now to the over. 33 of the 63 games have gone over the total points line. For the first 5 rounds, pretty much majority of games were going under. The past couple of weeks, that's turned around with 14 of the past 20 games going over the total. You want to monitor how this goes over the next couple of weeks. If there does start to be a gap between the two, then you want to start hitting the opposite side, as the lines normally over adjust for that. We've had a few big oversides so far. Carlton, Collingwood, GWS, and especially North Melbourne going over. Also the West Coast Eagles. Favorites last round covered the spread in 5 of the 9 games, and favorites have won 6 games. Looking at the ATS records, away sides have a better record as it currently stands. Favorites covered 34 of the 63 games. Also looking through big favorites, the favorites minus 30.5 or greater have covered 9 of the 12 games in that situation. Home teams last round covered 5 of the 9. Home teams trying to work that record back just a little bit. There were 2 underdogs who won last round outright. They were the GWS Giants against the Brisbane Lions. Brisbane came into favor late in that game, and then Fremantle beating the Western Bulldogs. That line moved around a fair bit, with Western Bulldogs ending up starting favorite. So we were on the right side of the odds movement, but not on the right side of the results. So now looking ahead to the games coming up this week, Adelaide versus Port Adelaide is the Thursday night game. Port are small favorites here, minus 2.5, total at 174.5 points. This game is very interesting. Adelaide have won the past 2 by fairly big margins, and those games were both games last season. Port statistically are the better side on paper from what they've done so far this year. Adelaide's last 3 weeks have been a bit better, aside from their kind of poor performance against the Bombers. Port are going to be without a couple of key players for this game, so that definitely hurts them a little bit. Final lineup is going to be key for this game. 3 of the past 4 head-to-head have gone over the total points line. Last time they met, it was 177.5, 3 points lower this time. The team listed as the home side has covered 6 of the past 7 in this matchup. Adelaide, as I mentioned, have won 3 of the past 4 now, including the last 2, and covered 4 of the past 5. This is a game where I'd slightly lean towards Port Adelaide, but not confident enough to make a bet, but also be definitely leaning towards the over in this matchup at 174.5. Probably prefer the over compared to a side as it currently stands. Carlton versus Collingwood. The Blues are small favorites, minus 3.5. They won the last matchup in round 20 last season, 93-76, as 16.5 point underdogs. So significant line movement since their last meeting. Carlton obviously playing very, very well this season. Number 3 in attack, but both sides poor defensively. So that is effectively the reason this total is at 178.5 points. Much, much higher than their last meeting at 159.5. Even though 3 of the past 4 head-to-head have gone under, they've definitely set this total very, very high. Carlton averaging over 100 points a game, both sides conceding close to 90 points a game. So it wouldn't surprise me if this game was to go over, but the number's just a little bit too high for me to take. Collingwood do have a really good record in this matchup, winning 8 of the past 10. And also, the team listed as the away side has covered the spread in 15 of the past 18. Obviously, all those meetings are at the MCG, so it does kind of flip-flop each time. Now, very interesting that away side has been covering so often. They've also won 14 of the past 18. From a total perspective, as I said, didn't really want to get involved with such a high number. If it came down to the low 170s, then I'd definitely be keen on the over, but I don't think it's going to do that. Right now, leading towards Collingwood as an underdog to win this game. Sydney versus GWS. We've got the top 2 attacking sides in the league going up against each other, but really bad weather conditions expected. That's why this total is set at 147.5, even though 4 of the past 6 have gone over in this meeting, and you've got 2 super attacking sides in this game. The Swans come up small favorites, -2.5. They won the last matchup against GWS last season in round 21, 96-85. The Giants were 7.5 point favorites for that game. Last time Sydney were at home, they were -21.5. So 3 goals difference basically since that meeting, which was round 7 at the SCG last season. From a head-to-head perspective, I'm leaning towards the Swans to be winning this game. Both sides very even in attack, but defensively, the Swans are the better side, and they do have a good record, winning 3 of the past 4. So leaning to the Swans there. St Kilda versus North Melbourne. The Saints are 36.5 point favorites. They've won the last 4 against North Melbourne. However, North Melbourne have covered 6 of the past 8. All of those as fairly big underdogs, plus 35.5, 38.5, 24.5. So to get this situation again here, teams have been racking up the points against North Melbourne this season. Their points conceded on average is 123.1. So St Kilda should be able to light up the scoreboard here. However, their past 2 matchups have been extremely low scoring. Both games last season significantly went under. The past 5 have all gone under the total points line. So the only reason this number has gone up is because North Melbourne, like, teams have just been scoring with ease against them. This is a pretty ugly game to get involved from a betting perspective. So as it currently stands, staying away from it. May look for player props into that matchup. Melbourne versus Geelong. Geelong, small favorites here, -1.5, total at 165.5. The home side's covered 7 of the past 8 in this matchup. Geelong winning the past 2, and they've also won 18 of the past 23 against Melbourne. So really, really good record in this game. Melbourne currently the number 1 defensive side going up against Geelong, the number 4 attack and number 4 defensive side in the league. A slight lean towards the Cats here, just with their strong overall record against Melbourne, and they look very, very hard to stop. I think Melbourne being a touch overrated as the odds currently stand, so do like Geelong. Total at 165.5. Interesting, like when you look at the historical totals for this matchup, they've been fairly low, all around the 150 mark. 149.5, even 146.5 the last meeting. So at 165.5, it's 15 to 20 points higher than their previous meetings. I would be leaning towards the under as it currently stands, with both sides being top 4 defensive sides. West Coast versus Essendon. Essendon -12.5. They have won 3 of the past 4 against the West Coast Eagles, and the Eagles have covered 5 of the past 7 in this matchup. So Essendon only small favorites. West Coast get back home after winning back-to-back games at home and then traveling to the Gold Coast and losing last week. It's going to be interesting how they perform. I do think they're being a touch overvalued here, the Eagles, off those 2 home performances. By all means, they looked very, very good. But whether they can still replicate that again this time around. Obviously, if this game was played like 3 or 4 weeks ago, then Essendon would be a 25 to 30 point favorite. So I think there's been a significant adjustment in this. Statistically, Essendon are better than a 2-goal team compared to the West Coast Eagles, but can they do that over at Optus Stadium? They've won the last 2 matchups there, 96 to 46 and 87 to 71 against the Eagles. And compared to the last time they went there in round 11 last season, Essendon were minus 40.5 point favorites. So picking a side in this game, a slight lean towards Essendon at the line, but I do like the over 168.5 in this matchup. Down 14 points from their last game and still 3 points lower than their last meeting at Optus Stadium. Richmond versus Fremantle. Fremantle 12.5 point favorites. Richmond won the last meeting, then the 2022 game ended in a draw. Fremantle have covered 3 of the past 4. The underdog has covered the past 5 in this matchup. Richmond has won 5 of the past 7 against Fremantle. This is a really, really tricky game. Richmond are a very, very inconsistent side, and Fremantle really tending to struggle away from home. The away side does have a good record in this matchup, covering 9 of the past 11. This is a game where statistically Fremantle should dominate possession and also on the back of their defense make it very, very hard for Richmond to score. So from a betting perspective in this game, I'd be looking towards Richmond's team total under against Fremantle, and or potentially looking into Fremantle player props and their disposals, because teams are definitely racking up the disposals against the Bombers. Western Bulldogs versus Hawthorn. Bulldogs 4-goal favorites, total 172.5. 5 of the past 6 in this game have gone under. Total is higher than any of the past 3 games at 172.5. So definitely am leaning towards the under here. Hawthorn really struggling to score. They now rank last in the league in points scored. The only game where they actually managed to score was against North Melbourne. Defensively, the Bulldogs are very, very strong. I'll be looking at what Hawthorn's team total is, but also considering the full game under. Their previous matchups have pretty much all been low scoring other than the 2022 game in round 15. I think the Bulldogs definitely should be winning this game. It's not really the greatest spot for them though, coming back from the trip to Perth last week. Brisbane versus Gold Coast. The Lions are 12.5 point favorites. Gold Coast won the latest matchup by 41 points. The Lions were 17.5 point favorites. Last time they met at the Gabba, Brisbane were 24.5 point favorites. That line's been cut in half on the back of Gold Coast's form this year, and Brisbane are really struggling. This is a game Brisbane technically have to win, and I do think they get it done at home. Defensively, they're strong enough to win this game. Gold Coast haven't traveled well, but it's only an hour away up the highway to Brisbane, so it's very, very different. So for the last game of the round, I like the Lions to win, and I'm not sure if I want to take the minus 12.5 or 139. And I also do like the over in this game at 165.5. Gold Coast do struggle defensively, but they are capable of putting up points. Brisbane are better at home at scoring, so all those factors align, and the total is only 165.5. So that's how I'm looking at the upcoming games this weekend. I'll be posting videos leading into the matches with my exact bets, what bookmakers who have the best odds on that market. So then you guys can follow along, and all these sheets are going to be available at investor.bet.com.au. Check the description so you can access all these betting guides, betting previews, the bet finders, everything you need to make decisions for your bets based on statistics for the AFL and a stack of other sports, which when you click that link, you can check it all out.